What's up, Menace soldiers? I am the Net Alliance, and today I'll be introducing my new series to the channel from now on. It's called Top 5 Best and Top 5 Worst. Now I'll give a little bit of an explanation on exactly what this is. So pretty much, each week I'll be tackling a new movie from any genre or franchise, and I'll be establishing my thoughts on that specific movie's top 5 best things, characters, moments, or story elements, stuff like that. Then a day or two later, I'll follow that first video with a top 5 worst things, characters, moments, or story elements from the exact same movie. It's just kind of a new idea that I came up with, so I guess we'll just see how that goes. Also, if you have any cool ideas for the next movie I should feature in this series, let me know in the comments below. If I use your idea, you'll receive a shout out. Now with that said, I hope this intro kind of made sense to you. If not, you'll kind of get the gist of it as the video goes on. So, I hope you enjoy. And on to the video. Star Wars The Phantom Menace is regarded to be one of the most disliked films in the Star Wars franchise. But for all its faults, there are actually some pretty great things sprinkled throughout this film. So here, for the top 5 best, we have Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Many times it seems like The Phantom Menace and A New Hope are compared the most. I think it's mostly due to the fact that both films are the start of their own respective trilogies. And while many would argue that A New Hope completely obliterates The Phantom Menace in every way, I'd argue that there is one element where Episode 1 has the advantage, and that element is the world building. Now it could be argued that the world building isn't the most important aspect in a movie, especially when you have good characters and an interesting plot. But for me, while world building may not be the most important aspect, I actually really do appreciate when films go into further detail about things that don't really matter to the main plot. I know that may sound a little weird, but let me finish my argument before you cast your judgment. It was cool seeing Naboo in the city of Theed, and regardless of how you feel about the Gungans and Jar Jar, you gotta admit the underwater city is pretty interesting. We saw Coruscant, the city planet, we saw Tatooine and its more expansive population and culture. The galaxy of Star Wars felt so much more massive and full. The original trilogy has a big emphasis on Luke and his personal dealings with the Empire and Vader. Now, while the story was good, the story was pretty much just taken up by that, so it kind of felt like more of a small story. But in The Phantom Menace, it seems like every character has their own goal in mind, even just random background characters. It gives the feeling of real life, because in real life, everyone has their own mission or their own duty that they're doing at the time in their life. And like I said, it just makes the world feel more real. And as I mentioned, while I acknowledge that a good plot and good characters should always come first in a movie, I personally appreciate little world building moments that make the universe just feel so much more alive. And I think The Phantom Menace does a good job of portraying that. At number 4, we have the character of Qui-GON Jinn. I've heard once that Qui-GON was a pointless character who didn't need to exist, and while I understand the argument against him existing, I believe he's a very important character for what he stands for. Qui-GON isn't your typical Jedi Knight. He doesn't give into the belief of the Jedi, and although the term of Grey Jedi doesn't actually exist in canon, I believe Qui-GON is a shining example of it. Now when people hear the term Grey Jedi, they instantly think of a person who is not dark nor light, just someone who sits in the middle. And while that's not 100% wrong, it's not exactly accurate either. A Grey Jedi is a person who is aligned with the light, but marches to the beat of their own drum. So when the other Jedi talk about how Qui-GON didn't follow the rules, that doesn't mean it's because he's half Sith and half Jedi. It just means he sees the faults in the ideals of the Jedi and has his own beliefs on what type of person he'd like to be. And that's why Qui-GON is more than just the stoic master character type. He's the beacon of honesty in the Jedi Order. And so, once he dies, his death doesn't just mark his own fall, but it also marks the beginning of the fall of the Jedi Order. At number 3, speaking of the Jedi, so while I'll admit the Jedi don't really do much in this film, the reason I have them at this spot isn't because I like the way they were handled, but I like what they represent in more ways than one. Let me explain. So in this film, on the surface, the Jedi are viewed to be this prestigious order of people. However, while they do look nice and shiny on the outside, you can detect small seeds of hubris and entitlement. Which is ironic because that's not what Jedi are supposed to be about at all. So while I love Mace Windu and Yoda, when it comes down to it, the fact that the Order is presented in the way it is makes the boring dialogue and the somewhat lifeless deliveries of said dialogue more sensible. So for those of you who find the Jedi boring, this could be a positive explanation onto why they are the way they are. So pretty much the Jedi Order we see in The Phantom Menace is obviously shown on the light side, and we know that, but they kind of go by the light side in the wrong way, if you know what I'm saying. And I think these scenes perfectly represent that. At number 2, we have the pod race. It's interesting, when I was a kid, I actually really liked The Phantom Menace, but I thought that the pod race scene was just okay. Now that I'm older, I find The Phantom Menace as a whole just okay, and I think the pod race scene is actually pretty fun. Now I think the reason for this, besides me getting older and understanding films better, I think the pod race scene is a brilliantly filmed action scene. So if you're not a fan of this scene, I want you to take into account what I'm about to say, and after I'm done, I want you to rewatch the scene and just see if maybe it improved it for you. If not, that's okay, but I just want to see if maybe that would help. So I guess I'll explain my thoughts onto why I think this scene is brilliant. So one of the main factors is that every time you see a pod racer on screen, the frame will always be moving left to right with the pods, making the scenes feel more cohesive and keeps the action going. Another interesting thing is just how many obstacles our hero Anakin has to face just in this one race. First, his pod won't start, then after some tweaking, he gets it going. This, of course, is our first conflict. But once he gets going, he's already super far behind and now he has to catch up, introducing his second conflict. Then, once he finally catches up, he starts to get shot at by Tusken Raiders. This introduces our third conflict, and it continues to go on from there. I'm not going to do a complete play-by-play of the scene, but you understand what I'm saying. So pretty much in the span of 10 minutes, we have an action scene that continues to keep moving. It keeps you on the edge of your seat the entire time. And that's why I think the pod race is such a great scene. At number 1, we have the lightsaber fight. The lightsaber duel at the end of this film is regarded by many to be the only reason to watch The Phantom Menace. And while I believe there are other reasons, I can't deny the lightsaber fight is super fun. I personally think that this lightsaber fight did a great job of showing just how fantastic lightsaber fights could be. Now, while I admit that this fight seems to lack the emotional impact of the fights we see in the original trilogy, I think it makes up for that gripe for delivering a fun, blood-pumping action scene. Plus, that's Scordo. And this has been my top 5 best Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace. What are your top 5 best things? What are your top 5 worst things? Let me know in the comments below. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, if you have any cool ideas for a future movie, let me know in the comments below, and I may just give you a shout out in that future video. But that's it for now, guys. Thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you later. Peace.